Good morning. There's a hurricane on Myrtle Beach right now. Just want the update, the news. Thank you for watching.
Ian with 85-mile-an-hour winds. It also has a movement north at 14 miles per hour. Pressure remains pretty much the same as the last 100% intensity in around the eye wall that was noted by the hurricane hunters as they went into the storm. And that can, of course, give us some intensity there with the core of the storm. Once it makes landfall, seeing very intense winds up to that Category 1
You
strength.
know where's
And the
my
winds that comes in when we're
phone
expecting even to
holder?
start to diminish in strength.
You know
As
where's...
we
Can you give me?
up to 20-foot wave
Can you
heights.
give me,
Wow.
please?
Looking like those are coming in just off of the shore there on Myrtle Beach.
This the...
So those buoys are out there, and they can give us not only wave
It's
data, but they can
Merrill's
also tell
Inlet
us some of the wind
right
speeds,
now.
even air
It's
temperature
very
and
near
water
to our
temperature
house.
can be collected depending on the type of buoy that it is. So we're watching those pretty carefully to see the information coming in. From Savannah all the way up to Hatteras, we do have a watch north of there, but this is a long stretch where we're expecting to see anywhere between 2 to almost 9 feet. So depending on where you are, you have to adjust how far you're inland, because the surge is how far water will come over dry land. The surge will not be as intense nor as devastating as it was for the western coastline of Florida, but it's still a very high impact area.
No, it's Merrill's Inlet, right?
Yeah. Surge in and around Myrtle Beach, in Charleston at 47, and then there could be pockets in and around Georgetown where we could see even higher. There are 2 rivers there that meet, so we'll see what happens with the high tide and timing of the storm pushing the water inland. So that's one area to watch. Besides the storm surge, you've also got to look at what the water does inland with rain. And so we know that the storm will start to see some of the intensity diminish as far as the rain goes, but it'll still be there, and we have very vulnerable ground. These are the latest storm surge numbers. We've got Beaufort at 2.4 now, Wrightsville Beach 2.8, so they're doing that 3-foot surge there. The center of the storm still about 60 miles off the coastline, and so about 60 miles outside of Charleston, and the northward movement at 14 miles per hour. There's the high tide, which really we're about 10 minutes away from the high tide in Charleston, and then we're going to be on the backside. The low tide isn't until 6:15, but maybe if we meet in the middle there, it's a little bit of a, it's a little bit of a cushion. It could be a cushion, because earlier we were thinking that maybe the landfall might coincide right with midday, the noon hour, but because the turn there from a little bit directly to the north, not necessarily slowing
Notice
down
very
away
short.
from the shoreline, but just a little push in direction has changed things.
Big change, and the wind gusts, boy, what a change right now. 53 mile per hour wind gusts from Charleston right now. Savannah all the way to 30, but
Very
well to the
windy
north on the
outside.
northern side as that wind's whipping around there. Wilmington at 38. You can see that field, the wind field, bright red that you see there, those hurricane force winds, 74 miles per hour or stronger.
That's a 90-mile-an-hour, or 90 miles, that wind field
90 miles.
right now.
Yeah.
And the tropical storm force winds.
You want to report?
No, I'm very cold.
When you think about North Carolina, you think about the Virginias, a lot of that rain extends all the way, even into portions of Tennessee, if you will, but most of the South Carolina. All right, so let's bring you going with what's going on with the storm right again. The latest information that came in at about 11 o'clock. We talked about
Please
that being
don't
about 60
broken
miles
our
east
things.
of Charleston, South Carolina, continuing to move to the north. A Category 1 hurricane has moved over those open waters, warm waters, which were about 79 to 80 degrees or so. It refueled. It's that heat in the water that turns to energy that basically fuels that storm, continues to track up to the north. Who's in the path? Boy, when we look at what's going on here, this is going to be impressive. All the people in this area, we're talking about 5.6 million people within the forecast of coming out there. 4.4 rather now, the latest one. But you can see the counties there as we list them as the amount of people who live in each of those counties. So 4.4 within the latest information that's coming in earlier, that was quite a bit higher. Hurricane Ian, as we look at the hurricane warnings, they extend up and down the
My
coast of South
okra.
Carolina. You think about those winds at 74 miles per hour or stronger. The tropical storm warnings extend
Honey, don't open the door.
of North Carolina down through southeastern Georgia there, where you can see those winds 39 to 73 miles per hour. Power outages likely, and again, as I look at the latest information that's been coming in South Carolina alone, we're talking about right now 44,000 power outages in South Carolina. As I look at North Carolina, 16,000 power outages right now. Just give you a quick update on Florida, by the way, 1.9 million customers without power. Remember, those are customers, so it could be an apartment, it could be a home. It doesn't include the amount of people that live there, but it's that customer. You can have a family of 4. Charleston, when we look at the impacts, we're looking at about 5 to 8 inches of rain falling that will lead to flash flooding on top of the storm system as well. Out through the afternoon hours, 40 miles per hour possible, getting even stronger as we go through the afternoon. Those wind gusts as the sun gets closer. Storm surge is a major problem, 4 to 7 feet. When you're talking Charleston, remember Charleston varies. There are some areas about 20 feet below sea level. It goes up to 319 feet, on average about 20 feet above sea level there. Here's a look at the storm itself, and those outer rain bands on the northern side extend all the way up into Virginia's, and it is pushing over a good portion of North Carolina. Heavy rain bands as well. Then you look down to Charleston, where we're getting stronger winds, and we do have a flash flood warning in place here. And this is going to be in place through 2 o'clock, I believe. Is that right, Jeff?
Charleston.
2 o'clock. And we've got the rain that's been coming down. It is heavy, so it's just going to continue to pile up. Future track, as we look ahead into the afternoon, the storm continues to traffic to the north, moves over land. Of course, loses that source of the warm water. Nonetheless, the wind is still there, and the rain continues to come down. At this point, look how far north the rain starts to extend up into portions of New York, Connecticut, New Jersey, and also over portions of the Smokies, but well up into. Then as we go into Saturday afternoon, the rain continues to pick up. The storm starts to move off the coast, but on the backside of that, the heavy rain extends well inland. As we know, it's well inland that the communities sometimes forget, oh, we're not going to get the rain, this winds from it, but you are, and it could be heavy rain at times. The flash flood is there, the level 3 out of 4 for most of South Carolina, most of North Carolina. The lighter blue that you see is the possibility. You can see how far north it extends. Flash flood threat as we go through Saturday into Sunday. Now moves up to the north a little bit. Roanoke's right in the middle of that. We'll see the bullseye with the heavy rain as we go into early Sunday morning. We could also see tornadoes during this time period. That is a concern as we're talking about the overnight hours when people are still sleeping and still trying to get some rest. Meantime, the flood alerts are in place from South Carolina to North Carolina through Virginia as we go through Saturday morning. The rain still to come on top of what has already fallen. You look at the shades of orange. Watch how far it extends from South Carolina through North Carolina up through Virginia. You're talking about 3 to 5 inches easily for a huge chunk of real estate. But the yellow within that easily seen a few inches of rain here, and quite a bit of it extends well up into even in southern Pennsylvania. That is going to be for the next 5 days. We'll show you that live shot, Charleston, South Carolina, on the top of the right-hand side of your screen where the rain has been coming down. Visibility is dropping. The video from Thursday from Lee County, Florida, just the devastation that continues to come in as the sun has come up over portions of Florida. We continue to watch this storm, Ian, as it moves to the north. We leave you with the shot right now as we take a quick break from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Look at the waves just pounding up against the coast. High rises already preparing, and some gusty winds have been blowing right through this again, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. We'll be right back tracking more on Ian right after this break. This September, fall into two. Your favorite stars and biggest movies and greatest moments. Watch 3.
This is our backyard, and there's a lot, so windy.
The results could change the course of this country. And we've got it all covered right here.
Democracy 2022. Shannon Green is a new host of Sunday.
I've had this front row seat to history.
set here in the nation's capital affect everybody living in this country.
Now, a proud Sunday morning tradition continues.
I think for a lot of people, it sets the tone for the week. I'm excited to have these longer form conversations where we dig into what matters and to really call people to task.
For the show that you missed, Fox News Sunday. As the storm continues to inhabit Hurricane HQ has begun. With live reports as events unfold, tracking Ian's widespread impact in the southeast. For the latest news and up-to-the-minute reports, stay with Fox Weather.
It's calm down already, right?
Thanks for staying with us here on
It's calming down, goes up, it'll do that, but hasn't been land yet. So
Carolina,
maybe
we are
it's
talking
land.
about life-threatening storm surge, high winds, and we see rains, Greg. I mean, we have multiple flash floods.
Exactly. Power outages
Oh my
already
God.
adding up
I know, I'm
now,
trying to
but in
talk.
Florida, homes wiped out and communities are absolutely devastated. They see debris and rubble. Just tough to see these images coming in. More than 1.9 million people at this hour still without power, and search and rescue teams are still going through a lot of these flooded neighborhoods trying to rescue anyone who
Listen,
needs help at this point.
Florida,
Welcome to
right?
Fox Weather. I'm Craig Herrera.
And
That's
Bernard
Florida.
Merwin, we appreciate you sticking with us
Yesterday.
here on Fox
Yesterday.
Weather. Just tremendous what we've seen really unfold over the last couple days, and to really look at the scope of the system. I mean,
Yeah.
right? We have what happened in Florida, now we're talking about second landfall, and even past today, we're going to see some big impacts as all of the moisture that is left over from this could produce some flooding concerns for the DC area.
Yeah, and you think about Ian intensifying with the latest advisory, still a category 1, and when it went over that warm water that we saw right in the Atlantic, and all that wind, that storm surge,
So
hit the
it'll go up
places
and
that are
down,
low
up and down.
lying already, Charleston,
It'll go up and
Savannah,
down,
all these
up
places
and
that are
down,
low lying.
up and
Even if you're south of Charleston, could still see some strong storm surge, and north of there. Tornadoes have also been a concern, and a lot of these could be happening with rain wraps, so much rain coming down in some cases, the visibility is so low, and a lot of these could be happening overnight as well.
Yeah, and a big heads up for folks that live in,
Yeah, I'm glad
in
you
North
know what you
Carolina and
did.
South Carolina. I mean, so much focus right now is on this second landfall, and it is a big focus. But as we go into the afternoon, if you live in Charlotte, if you live in Columbia, these are going to be areas that also experience some very strong winds, some rain, and also that tornado risk.
Absolutely. We want to go out to Fox News correspondent Doug Luzader, who is live in Charleston, South Carolina. Doug, we've been checking in with you as the wind is coming down. It looks like visibility is dropping. The rain's coming down hard.
Yeah, you know, we're along kind of a river here in
We're not getting that
Charleston,
much rain.
and right now the other
We're
side
just- I mean,
is
it's got a little bit of rain,
completely
but it's a lot of
obscured, just
wind.
about.
Charleston
so
is
we're
getting a lot of
seeing
rain.
visibility begin to
Rose
diminish
Inlet,
considerably,
storms.
and we're seeing the rain and the
Ocean
wind
is
pick
all
up
the way
quite a
up
bit.
to
You see the boats
beach
there
house.
in the marina.
Hi.
so I don't
We
know
will
why.
see how
No,
they do
because
over the
the
course of the storm. A lot of folks
high
left a lot of
tide.
boats unattended here, and really
You know what I
didn't
mean?
do much in the way of
It's high
preparing them by all
tide.
indications
Yeah.
for the storm.
Big.
So we'll see how they do with the wind. As far
Right.
as the storm surge is concerned, those docks out there are floating, so they'll go up and down with the storm surge and with tidal surge. But the city of Charleston itself is very vulnerable to this. It is very, very low. Even at high tide, we still see some flooding. So you combine that
High
with the
tide.
storm surge that we're expecting, and we are likely to see
Because
some
it's high
considerable
tide.
flooding as Ian makes its way on shore here.
Yeah, the whole timing with high tide, Doug, that can be a concern. High tide is happening right now. So at least hopefully we can
It
see
will be
the high
low
tide drop a
tide,
little bit. We're not
it's
gonna get to low
low
tide
tide.
before that landfall, but unfortunate to see any sort of correlation with the tidal effect, considering that Charleston has, tides that change the water level 4 to 5 feet on a normal day.
You know, it really depends on where you are. The tide marker here actually hit high tide a little while ago, but it depends. Different parts of the city, obviously, the tides have a different impact, and they have different significance. So regardless, folks around here keep a very close eye on the tides. In the best of circumstances, it is especially true now with the storm approaching, the combination of the tides and the storm surge. They call the low country around here. That tidal surge and the storm surge will carry a long ways inland just because of how low the topography is.
Doug, can I get a feel from you from when you were coming into town, what people were feeling like, what they were sensing, what was the energy, knowing what had happened in Florida as we forecast this going closer to South Carolina?
Well, I think just like in Florida, you have a lot of grizzled veterans of hurricanes around here. And remember, they were initially told that the expected path of Ian would bring likely a tropical storm force storm into this area. And instead, we saw the strengthening happen. So it's a little bit stronger than perhaps some people initially thought. Now, having said that, you know, a Category 1 hurricane is something that a lot of people here think they can weather. We'll see. It's one thing, though, to make it through the wind. It's something else to make it through the flooding, which, again, is going to be significant through the course of this storm. But there was no panic here. We went to a Walmart yesterday to stock up on some items, and, you know, there was no panic buying going on that we could really discern. We spoke to the Walmart greeter who had been through Hugo. Really didn't think this was going to be a big deal. Again, we'll see. I mean, officials are certainly urging folks to stay higher ground if they can, even if there are not mandatory evacuations.
Yeah, all right. Well, we appreciate it. Thank you. Fox News correspondent Doug Luzader. We were checking with you again. Thanks so much. We appreciate it.
I put a little video of the wind. Somebody that I know lives in Charleston, Truth Social, was talking about how it is in Charleston, so I did a little video of the wind, I said, all we got is wind, but I did see some fences down coming back.
Flooding could actually result in loss of life. So Brady, it's a big deal
now
what
everybody's here
Orlando
like,
went through
we're praying for
yesterday.
you.
The water that's still behind you, it really is
I'm stuck
astonishing
in
that it's still
Washington DC
there.
right now, and I'm worried about my house in Myrtle Beach.
That's right, and if you're here today, the storm is
So
gone,
we'll be
the
praying.
skies are clear, it's starting to warm up, because it was oddly
If
cool
you haven't
out
been
here
to
yesterday
Tucson,
and this morning. If you're here, people are starting to pick up, you know, the tree limbs, clean up, and also come out to take a look at what's still here. So, that is actually Lake Cherokee, but once I walk further away from it, you'll see that this lake extended into the street, into Cherokee Park, in between these homes, and continuing down about 2 blocks, connecting with another lake. So these are some of the remaining issues that are still here after Hurricane Ian. Now, we do want to show you some images from yesterday that we gathered between Orlando and Kissimmee, another area severely impacted, resulting in some water rescues happening. And but to give you some updates on today as to what's happening here in Orlando, the city, they're working to pick up debris, and says tomorrow they're going to start picking up trash from residential areas and commercial locations. Power still out for about 137 in this county, in Orange County. The police and fire department, they say there are no active search and rescue operations happening. All of the city parks here, they're closed until further notice, as the city's looking for any damage in those areas. And again, the city, they're just working to clear debris, because if you're driving through here, you will see a lot of it. Now, I do want to take it back to Kissimmee, because that is, again, another severely impacted area. Yesterday, we witnessed countless amounts of water rescues, and one in an apartment complex where a lot of people were still on the second floor trying to hide from the high waters. I spoke to one resident. He was actually at work when it happened, and he got the call. And when he got off from work to go home, he did have a couple of inches inside of his home. Let's take a listen to what he had to say about that damage.
After you didn't feel bad on the guessing outside the apartment on the corner, the water was actually more than halfway where the window is. That's how high the water was. And it's just, I know Mother Nature takes its course, but it's just amazing how quickly things can get damaged, and this can change your life for a long time. So it's crazy. I'm gonna send an email to the company itself just to be sure that what's gonna be the next procedure for our property. I mean, I've been here almost 5 years, and this is the first time I see this bad.
Okay, and just in case you guys couldn't hear it very well, it's a little overmodulated, but he was just saying that he felt really badly for his residents, or neighbors, I should say, he lived there, that got the extreme amount of water, you know, very high up on their windows. But also moving forward, he was going to reach out to his apartment complex, because he hadn't noticed a presence from them there, to see what's going to happen for them next, especially, you know, with rent coming around. How will they move forward as far as they're living there and having to pay there, because this is a severe impact for some of the people living there in Kissimmee. I'm going to send it back to you all here from Orlando as we continue to get updates on how things are going here just days or a day after Hurricane Ian.
Yeah, in some ways, Brandy, it kind of feels like it has been days because of how much we've been through. I did want to ask you, Brandy, I can tell that they have some tape that's, looks like we're going to lose Brandy, that happens. But what I wanted to say was that you could tell that it's marked off by tape, and that's important to mark. Brandy, we got you back. The tape that I see that is surrounding the area, obviously that's to keep people out of the park. What kind of wildlife have you seen? Because for people that aren't from the South, there's a little critter called a fire ant, and fire ants are awful. And it's interesting that over years, because of hurricanes and floods, fire ants have actually evolved to have this coping mechanism that during flooding, they clump together and they'll have a floating mound of fire ants, and the first thing that the mound hits that's actual hard ground or someone's body, they attach to it, and that's how they survive floods. So I just want to ask you, have you seen people heeding these warnings to stay out of the park? I saw the kids playing, but they were a safe distance from the edge of the water. But has that been a challenge to keep people out?
So I will say, yeah, as you see this tape here, right here, it hasn't really been keeping anybody out of this water. We've been seeing a lot of people with their canoes, paddle boards, coming out, kind of enjoying the day out here after the storm has passed. So people definitely out here. I haven't seen any hazards just from where I've been. Definitely, some birds, ducks, swans in the water, but there's no question that I'm sure there has to be some kind of hazards throughout this area. It's a very large park and a lot of water that has come onto natural lands out here that normally does not have water. Guys.
Wow, well, thanks for the perspective, Brandy, and definitely watch out for those fire ants. That's all I gotta say.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, it is incredible, but they can cause some issues. Let's go back to what's happening in South Carolina, because again, this is the scope of what's going on. Usually we have these big hurricanes, you have a big impact day, and then you head right into the recovery phase. We're still actively dealing with Ian, and although this is no longer Category 4 hurricane, this is a very formidable Category 1 hurricane that is causing some large concerns. You're looking at an elevated camera over Murrells Inlet, and you can tell that the waves are going right up against the shoreline, and typically you would actually see some beach there. So this is showing you that impact of the storm surge and the fact that we have high tide happening in some of these locations right now. But definitely the power of Ian is still very much being felt.
Camera bouncing around.
Yeah, so, it's going to be a long stretch of time. Once we get past the landfall, even tonight is going to be a little rough, and that means power outages are going to start to come up. Right now for North Carolina, we're looking pretty good. We have one county that's starting to report some power loss. We're sitting around 17,000 people without power. But the concern is as Ian makes a landfall, and then we
Some of my friends is in Murrells Inlet.
Into the state of North Carolina, we're going to see more people knock off.
And this place is very near in our house.
17 miles?
Incredible. Yeah, center of it, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean,
Stands quite a distance.
Right.
that's what happens with these storms. Ian was already large enough, but as that forward motion picks up, which is what we're noting in these new advisories from the National Hurricane Center, they start getting into more northerly latitudes, and that actually makes that widening of the wind field even more noticeable. So the fact that we're going to have these strong winds pushing inland into South Carolina, North Carolina, unfortunately, we're going to have more people come offline. There's an update on the South Carolina numbers. They're sitting a little bit higher than North Carolina, which makes sense. You're closer to the eye of Ian. But right now, you're sitting around 50,000 people without power.
I imagine we're going to see those numbers go up, right, Bretta? Especially with the winds coming through. And you look at that camera, just keeps bouncing around. Just incredible. All right.
And we're going to head to Naples, Florida. That's where we have Fox News correspondent Lauren Blanchard. Lauren, it's been heartbreaking to see the devastation of these homes and these communities. I was watching you walk through someone's property just about an hour ago, and the water line, just to see how high the storm surge came up in Naples, and to realize that that's not even the toughest
There's no more
storm
air.
that we've seen in Southwest Florida.
It's calm down.
No, Brett, I'm going to show you that water line here in just a minute, but if you can
1
tell
o'clock.
how strong this storm is, I mean, take a look at how big this boat, it has been lifted out of the water and pushed here. This, I'm told by the manager of this property, comes from a park about a half mile away. Let me show you around this property. We are here in Naples, and the manager of this property said one resident, an 87-year-old man, is the only person who decided to ride the storm out here, did not heed those